Here's something that should bother you. Over 10,000 tomato varieties exist on Earth right now. The average person has tasted maybe 12. That means somewhere out there, right now, is a tomato that tastes like a lemon, one that survived a war, one that a single man spent 60 years perfecting in his backyard, one that's mostly hollow, on purpose. We're going to fix your tomato education today, and the strangest one hides until the very end. Traveler's tomato. The name comes from the German word reise, meaning travel. The legend traces it back to the indigenous people of Guatemala. They'd carry these fruits on long walks, snap off a single bulb, eat it, and keep moving. And the remaining fruit would stay fresh in a pocket for days. Here's where the science gets genuinely strange. It is not a cluster of little tomatoes. It is one single fruit, twisted by a mutation called fasciation, where the growing tip of the plant multiplies uncontrollably and fuses into a tumor-shaped lump. Even the flowers come out deformed, split, and extra large. The stems grow flat like ribbons instead of round. A single traveler tomato can weigh close to a pound, stretch 15 centimeters across, and the skin heals itself within hours of a section being torn away. The flavor? Sour, sharp, almost like biting into a lemon wrapped in tomato skin. Seed historians still argue about its true origin: Peru, Guatemala, or possibly a spontaneous mutation in Austria or Germany, since nobody in Guatemalan markets today recognizes it from pictures. What's confirmed? Passengers on the Trans-Siberian Railway snacked on it for 6 straight days across Russia, piece by piece. That's how it earned the name Traveler's Tomato. A fruit with more passport stamps than your average tourist. The traveler tomato survived the 6-day train rides across Russia. The next tomato survived a war. Black Krim tomato. Crimea, a peninsula jutting into the Black Sea. You've seen it in the news. In the 1850s, it was a battlefield. During the Crimean War, soldiers from Britain, France, Italy, and Turkey fought across that land. When the war ended, some of them did something unusual. They stuffed tomato seeds into their coat pockets and carried them home. They tasted the Black Krim tomato during the campaign, that smoky, salty, umami flavor, and they couldn't forget it. Krim is the Ukrainian word for Crimea. For over 100 years after those soldiers came home, the Black Krim tomato stayed hidden in backyards across Eastern Europe. Small plots, no commercial interest, no one outside the region paying attention. Then in 1990, a Swedish seed saver named Lars Olav Rosenström sent a single package of seeds to the Seed Savers Exchange in Iowa. That one package made the Black Krim tomato the first commercially available black tomato in the United States. Quick visual check, because words don't do this justice. The Black Krim looks like it belongs in a horror movie. Dark purple shoulders, reddish-black skin, inside's the color of dried blood. In full sun, it goes almost coal black. In shade, it stays a dusky pink with green patches. Each one weighs 10 to 12 ounces. One slice covers a whole sandwich. The dark skin holds some of the highest anthocyanin levels of any tomato grown in a home garden, which is why California restaurants were paying $12 a pound for them in the early 2000s. A fruit carried home by soldiers, hidden for a century, now sitting on Michelin star plates. The next tomato wasn't discovered, it was engineered, and it took 10 whole years. Indigo Rose Tomato, Oregon State University, early 2000s. A professor named Jim Myers had one goal: grow a tomato that was actually purple. Not eggplant purple, not skin deep purple, real purple from the inside out. Loaded with anthocyanins, the same antioxidant compound that turns blueberries blue. His graduate student, Carl Jones, found the key: wild tomatoes with anthocyanin-rich skin, sitting untouched in a seed collection at UC Davis. Those seeds had been collected in the 1960s from 2 of the most isolated places on Earth, Chile and the Galapagos Islands. 2 breeders, one Bulgarian and one American, had pulled them from the wilderness, and nobody had done anything useful with them for 40 years. Myers and Jones spent a decade crossing those wild genes with regular red tomatoes, season after season, hundreds of hand-pollinated plants every summer. In 2011, they released the Indigo Rose, the first tomato in human history with anthocyanins in the actual fruit, not just the inedible leaves. Here's the ripeness trick that confused everyone at first. You cannot wait for red. The black skin goes dull when it's ready. Shiny black means unripe. Dull black means go. Myers didn't stop there. He bred indigo cherry drops, indigo pear drops, indigo kiwi, and in 2021 a paste variety called Midnight Roma, which Serious Pie in Seattle now uses for pizza sauce. Over 50 indigo-type tomatoes exist in seed catalogs today. Every single one traces back to wild seeds pulled from a rainforest in the 60s. That's a 60-year lineage for one tomato. But one man spent even longer: green zebra tomato. Tom Wagner grew up in Kansas in the 1950s, ordering seeds from a tiny mail-order catalog called Glecklers. He found a variety called Evergreen, a tomato that stayed green when ripe. One thing about it drove him insane: every single fruit cracked open before it reached the kitchen. In 1958, as a teenager, he made himself a promise. He was going to fix that tomato. He started crossing Evergreen with a red tomato that never cracked. What he got instead was a red tomato that cracked, but he kept going. For 15 years, he crossed thousands of plants, saving the tiny percentage of fruits that stayed whole. Then in 1973, on a winter morning inside his greenhouse, he finally bit into a green tomato with vertical stripes, a tangy kick, and 0 cracks. Then he realized the greenhouse door was locked from the outside. His neighbor Charles Taylor had to come rescue him, which technically makes Charles the first person on Earth to celebrate the green zebra. Alice Waters, the chef who built Chez Panisse in Berkeley, put it on her menu. Within a few years, the green zebra became the most recognized striped tomato on the planet. Every tie-dye tomato, every striped cherry, every zebra pattern variety you see at a farmer's market today traces back to that one winter morning. Wagner is now in his 80s, still breeding. His latest include a blue-green zebra and something called Muddy Waters, a dark blue tomato with green flesh. 60+ years and one man, because a tomato he bought as a kid kept splitting open too soon. The next person on this list went in the opposite direction. He grew the weirdest looking tomatoes he could find. Brad's atomic grape tomato. His name is Brad Gates. His farm is 4 acres outside Napa Valley. Tomato breeders have started calling him the Willy Wonka of the tomato world. Gates started selling heirlooms at farmers markets in the early 2000s. Within a few seasons, he was growing over 200 varieties, hunting for what he calls gifts of nature. Plants that just appear in a row, looking different from everything around them. He walks tens of thousands of plants every year, row by row, looking for the freaks. One day, he spotted a fruit that looked like it had been spray painted by nature. Green stripes, purple streaks, red blushes, yellow patches, all on the same elongated plum-sized cherry. He saved those seeds, grew them out, picked the weirdest of the weird, kept going. That fruit became Brad's atomic grape. In 2017, it won Best in Show at the National Heirloom Expo in Santa Rosa, beating thousands of entries from breeders across the country. When it's unripe, it's lavender with purple stripes. When it's ripe, it's olive green with red-brown markings and little indigo veins running through from the anthocyanins. Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds signed a deal with him the following year. Atomic Grape is now one of their best-selling varieties. Gates has since bred Berkeley Tie-Dye Green, Pink Berkeley Tie-Dye, Beauty Queen, Amethyst Cream, Blue Beauty, and Pork Chop, a yellow tomato with green stripes so bright it almost glows under natural light. His quote about the industry sums up everything on this list. Tomatoes have changed more in the last 10 years than they have in their entire existence. Pineapple tomato. Nobody agrees on where it was born. Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio, North Carolina. The stories overlap and contradict each other. What's documented? A man named Merlin W. Gleckler in Metamora, Ohio, named it and released it commercially in the early 1950s through his seed company, Gleckler's Seedmen. The same tiny catalog Tom Wagner was ordering from as a kid. The pineapple tomato weighs up to 2 pounds. The skin is deep golden orange, streaked with blood red. Slice one open, and the flesh is a starburst. Yellow, orange, red, marbled together in a spiral. The flavor carries a faint tropical hint with almost no acidity, a clean, fruity sweetness that actually earns the name. When Merlin Gleckler had a stroke and stepped down, his son George took over, and with funding from the Seed Savers Exchange, revived dozens of lost heirloom varieties that had nearly disappeared. The pineapple tomato was one of them. Today, a whole family of pineapple-type tomatoes exists. For example, Ananas Noir, which is the black and orange version, and another Ananas Blue, a blue-topped variant with purple leaves ornamental enough to plant in a flower bed. Now, the next tomato doesn't just look different, it's hollow. And that's the whole point. Shimmig stew tomato, Tom Wagner. Again, in 1983, the same man who gave the world the green zebra released a second tomato, a fruit he'd been refining since 1979 under the code name T1. He eventually gave it a proper name that almost nobody can pronounce, Shimmig stew. The phrase comes from Manx, the ancient Celtic language of his maternal grandfather, from the Isle of Man, a tiny island in the Irish Sea where the native tongue nearly went extinct in the 20th century. It translates to striped cavern. Here's what that means when you slice one open. The fruit is shaped like a bell pepper, bright red with orange stripes, deeply fluted like a gear. Cut it, and the shock hits. There is almost nothing inside. The center is hollow, just thin walls, a few seeds, and empty space. That is not a defect. Wagner bred it that way, selecting for hollow cavities so home cooks could cut off the top, fill them with tuna, rice, ground beef, or melted cheese, and bake them like edible bowls. The walls hold up better than bell peppers under heat, and the fruit absorbs whatever you stuff it with. Fine dining chefs have picked it up in the last decade and now serve them stuffed on tasting menus, turning a backyard tomato into a $75 course. One man from Washington State, breeding in a greenhouse, renamed his creation in a dying Celtic language to honor a grandfather nobody else would remember. The final tomato on this list barely resembles a tomato at all. Garden peach tomato. Hold a garden peach tomato in your hand, and the first thing you notice is that it's fuzzy, not spiky, not waxy. Actually fuzzy, soft like peach skin covered in fine velvety hair that makes it feel more like a small animal than a piece of produce. The variety arrived in the United States in 1862, originally from the tropical Amazon region of South America, where indigenous growers had been cultivating similar fuzzy-skinned fruits for centuries. The fruits weigh 2 to 3 ounces. They glow pale yellow with a pink blush. And the fuzz serves a real purpose, protecting the fruit from insects, sunburn, and minor frost. It also makes the garden peach one of the longest-keeping tomatoes ever bred. Once picked, the fruits store for up to 4 months. The flavor is mild, fruity, and has low acidity. The taste is almost more melon than tomato. Kids at farmers markets pick them up, rub them against their cheeks, and have no idea what they're holding. 10,000 varieties exist. You've tasted maybe 12. If you're the kind of person who just watched a video of tomato variations and wants more of this, you're exactly who this channel is for. Click the video on your screen now to learn about every mango explained.